Okay, it's now my pleasure to hand over to our dear colleague from MFAT, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Sarah. I always get confused. Look at Sarah. Sarah Lee, Unit Manager, Latin America for MFAT, but also was the first woman, female head of mission in all of Africa for MFAT. Is that correct? Yeah, a pretty amazing backstory. So I just want to acknowledge all of your journeys here and all of our journeys to come together today. But please, welcome Sarah, and over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, buenas tardes. You've made it, nearly. On a Friday afternoon, I think I am really thankful for the opportunity this afternoon to talk to a whole pile of the converted. So often I think all of us in this room are talking to people to convince them, and it's a really nice opportunity today to talk to the people who are already convinced and are working really hard to build links between Chile and New Zealand and broader Latin American community. So while I bring the panel onto the stage, I'll also share a few reflections of my own from the day, but the last panel for the day is my friends and colleagues, James Dixon, who's the chair of the Latin American New Zealand Business Council, Ana Azevedo, who is the head of internationalisation at Education New Zealand, Freddy Ernst, who's senior manager at the Ministry of Education on International Education Policy, and Professor Warwick Murray from Te Herenga Waka-Victoria University of Wellington in the School of Geography, Environment and Earth Sciences. I just wanted, as they all come up and get comfy, to pick out a few quotes from today. I've been jotting them down from our speakers, and some of them have meant quite a lot to me, so I thought I would share them. The government connections one should theoretically not have surprised me, but it was still really nice to have hear and reinforced those messages, talking about how we can share with Chile the really tough lessons that we've learned and also the proud successes that we can hopefully help Chile with. The panel, I loved the phrase, we need to keep upgrading the relationship. I think that was from our former Prime Minister, which was a great phrase. Panel on research and education connections. It was great to see the breadth and the colour of those connections, reinforcing each other's work, and I'll take the quote, not so much of separation, but a commonality, and that's what the Pacific Ocean brings us. Also, we've all got to together put some more poles in the sky so we can catch as much luck or as much lightning as we possibly can. The Chiwis, how to promote authentic connections between New Zealand and Chile, from difficult beginnings to future generations to entrepreneurs, and as we finally talked about, the importance of turning up for the community, for the Chiwi community and for the Latino community in New Zealand. But my insights and reflections are not what we're here to hear about, actually. So I will now turn. We are what stand between you and a refreshing beverage of your choice. So we will all try and keep it brief. And I'll sit down because it is a bit weird standing up here, Craig. I'm with you on that. So Anna, just going along the row.
I didn't pick a good seat, I think.
Was there anything that surprised you in today's discussion? As somebody who works very deeply in our relations with Chile, what was the surprising thing that came out of today?
The surprising thing, I think, all the comments about what brings us together. We always talk about the education connections, but seeing all these individual stories. We always talk about the outcomes, and we show these outcomes in numbers, in graphics, but having the chance to listen to the individual stories, to see the faces, the names, the trajectory, what does it take to build, you have an idea, you know someone, you start a relationship, this relationship generates outcomes, impacts the society, impacts two countries. And so for me, this was like, it was not a surprise, maybe so much, because we talk about this, but to have the chance to see the details of these outcomes that we always talk so much.
It was nice to personalise it, wasn't it? Something that we see so often on paper. Being able to see it in the faces of people was really nice. James, as someone who thinks about the business connections, what were the main themes of today's discussions from a business perspective? What can we take forward as the Lands BC?
Excuse me, thanks Sarah. And I enjoy working with Sarah on the council. She's an ex officio member of the board, and we really appreciate her insights and her finger on the pulse that we tap into. One thing that I took out of this morning's the earlier discussions today were just how much some of our trade policy is driven by kind of passionate individuals, and how you could see the Right Honourable Helen's kind of relationship and connection with Chile really helped push some of those early kind of foundations for some of our later trade agreements. So that kind of surprised me a bit when you think it's kind of down to individuals. You kind of think of this big government talking to another government, but it really comes down to individuals talking to other individuals that drive some of these quite, long-lasting changes. Is that enough for the moment, or you can? There's so much kind of inspiring stuff here. I'm honoured to be in a room full of the kind of the who's who of the Latin American world in New Zealand, and it's that previous panel was just so inspiring with those stories about Chilean Kiwis and things. I thought it was so cool, and the diversity and their range of backgrounds. So it's great to be here, and just a bit of background for why I'm here is I'm involved with a technical tourism business that is all to do with the primary sector, farming, agriculture, horticulture, that sort of stuff. So up until about 15 years ago, I hadn't had much to do with Latin America, but that's been a real enriching part of my work. We've been taking groups, or the company's been taking groups to Latin America for 25 years, and had technical groups from Latin America coming here. So it's kind of introduced me to a world that I didn't really know much about, and I've really enjoyed that aspect of our work. And as a business, we're really thankful for the Latin American part of our business. Our colleagues in Latin America sent us our last group prior to COVID, and just 2 days ago I farewelled our first group post-COVID, and they were from South America as well. So we have a good connection, and really enjoyed my week with these young Uruguayans. They're not Chilean, I know, but just to have that Spanish culture and their joy of being here and seeing our kind of agri-tech, agribusiness side of things here was a real pleasure. So I think we're in good hands, and what an inspiring, was it Nikita, to think we've got potential leaders like that for the future. It's very exciting, and in terms of, again, the business side of it, seeing our trade negotiations in Vangelis's capable hands, that's very reassuring too. So we look forward to seeing their progress over the years to come.
Thanks, James. And to talk of amplification, we've all got something that we can do in this room to help New Zealand business doing business into Latin America and vice versa. So my challenge is for you to all find a way of amplifying that. Freddy, talking about inspiration or challenges, what comments today really challenged you on the international education policy side? Was there something that has inspired you to take a particular aspect of your work forward?
Well, thank you, Sarah, and kia ora, y buenas tardes. So first, I'm one of those Chilean Kiwis, so a lot of what has been said today really resonates. From a public policy perspective, we obviously face challenges. The pandemic has obviously impacted on international education, and as a ministry, what we try and do is to ensure that the policy settings are right for international education to flourish. And for our colleagues, ENZ, we work very closely with Education New Zealand. We work quite closely with Immigration New Zealand to try and ensure that the policy settings are there for providers, for agents, for schools to be able to bring students in at tertiary, at all levels. So a lot of what I've heard are things that we are trying to do as much as we can from policy perspective. Obviously, government sets the policy. We can advise, but it's ultimately the government who makes the decisions. But from what I've heard, I agree that the future looks more positive, it looks more rosy, and as things settle down, I think the environment will improve quite a lot, and that makes everyone's jobs a little bit easier, I think.
And I'm sure Chilean counterparts will be having the same thought processes, right? So it's about tapping those both as well.
Absolutely, and I was fortunate enough to accompany the minister on his trip to the Americas, and a lot of what I heard today are things that were brought up by, for example, the Chilean Ministry of Education. So the challenges, they face many challenges around indigenous students, same as we do with Māori and Pacific students. So there's a commonality there that we are hoping to be able to do some things together to try and bridge those gaps. But certainly New Zealand is looked at by other countries like Brazil and Chile, looked at quite favorably in terms of how we've used, for example, Te Tiriti to drive some of those changes. So hopefully we can continue doing that.
Absolutely. And Warwick, you've got almost the last word. How would you like to use this? Is there something that you can tell us about what challenges you heard today or insights that you took today that will take your either personal academic work or your academic connections further and deeper?
Okay, well, kia ora Sarah and kia ora everybody. Muy buenas tardes. And something that surprised me today is how people think that the Chilean accent is unacceptable. Yo no tengo ningún problema con eso, weón. Anyway, they tend to put me on at the end, Sarah, because they either don't want to hear what I've got to say or it's the comic relief, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, it's been an absolutely brilliant day as far as I'm concerned, and I've really learned so much from everybody who's spoken. I've been amazed by the breadth, but first of all, the magnitude. I mean, there are 35 speakers today, and we've got a singer coming up as well, Amila, to grace us with her song. And that number of people involved in the relationship between, well, let's be honest, two medium-sized players on the world stage, let's say, and, you know, that's perhaps an overestimate, is absolutely, you know, really inspiring. It's quite incredible. But it's the breadth as well of what we've heard. I mean, we've heard about dance in Rapa Nui. We've heard about Latino radio in Christchurch. We've heard the inside of how the P4 was negotiated behind the scenes when we heard from Vangelis earlier, and so on. And that kind of breadth has been absolutely amazing, really. It's quite phenomenal what people here have achieved and what they've inspired in other people as well. But what really amazes me is the profundity of everything that I've heard today, because everybody wants to tell their story. I'm not going to tell mine, but I'll tell you after if you like, over a glass of Carmener. But everybody wants to tell their story because they feel it. They absolutely feel it. Everybody here is doing it for a profound reason. And of course, that could be from either side. And that coming together is so important. When the Latin America strategy was first released, and I just got to New Zealand at that point, I read it and I thought, yeah, okay, trade links, yeah, investment links, yeah, education links, good. People-to-people links, I thought, nah, not really. That's just put there that's just to kind of make it seem inclusive. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. They are the most important thing because they're the foundation of all the other things. And that's been the case all through the sessions today. We've seen that those people-to-people links are so important. You know, when you light a fire, you can put fire lighters on it, but they soon burn out. You can bellow it, but you might actually put the fire out. The best thing to do is to breathe on it. Human breath. There is no substitute for human breath when it comes to keeping a fire going. And that's exactly how I feel today after everything that everybody has said. So in terms of the challenges, I would say just maintaining these people-to-people links because they are the foundation of everything else.
What a great way to end. I think we have successfully fulfilled our mandate to not only summarise the day, but also not to do it too slowly. One thing from me is today was meant to celebrate and commemorate 50 years of embassies being built in our respective capitals, but I think that's kind of the wrong setting after listening to the presentations today, and we should be celebrating those 50 years of communities. And thank you all for the contributions you've made to those communities. One last thing, to welcome Matthew onto the stage to finish today's proceedings.